Welcome to Networking and Marketing Made Simple. My name is Scott Aaron, and each week we're going to take a behind the scenes look at all things LinkedIn marketing, LinkedIn networking, and how to get what you have in front of more people. So, thank you for joining me, and let's dive on in. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Networking and Marketing Made Simple. Super excited for today's episode. A couple reasons. Number one, got another great interview episode lined up for you guys. But number two, talking about one of my favorite topics that a lot of you, I know, are struggling with, and that is procrastination. This is something that becomes a pitfall for a lot of solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, service providers, if you allow it to. But the guest that I have for you guys today is obviously going to dive deeper into procrastination, how we can overcome it, how we can become more productive, and obviously how we can become more successful. So with that, Chris Abdey, welcome to today's episode.
Oh, thank you for having me, Scott.
Absolutely. So besides having a great barber, as myself, let's rewind the tape. Obviously, you are a procrastination coach. Obviously, you have 2+ decades of experience in helping people with this. But I always like to go back before we go forward. So if you could rewind the tape on your own business journey where you found a particular moment in time for you ended up being that catalytic moment for you, or that jumping off moment for you that kind of put you on this path that you're now currently on and moving into the future. What did that moment look like for you?
Oh yeah, well that's an easy one. That moment looked like for me, I was leaving corporate Americas about 4 years ago, so I do have over 2 decades of experience, but with the actual title and actually specifically coaching on that, it's been about 4 years. So the turning point for me was, I was chasing the almighty dollar. I had moved my family back to Canada, and I wanted to, I was actually about to start a different project, but that project would also take, probably take me 80-hour weeks and things like that. And I noticed that, my daughter was estranged, my wife was estranged. I lived with these people, but I didn't know them. So, I said I should probably do something else that's going to allow me to be more available to them. And so a few contacts reached out to me and they said, well, you've done business development, you've done this, you've done project management, you've been coaching people through burnout and overwhelm for the last, 2 decades. Why don't you just do that? And so here we are today.
So what do you feel? Obviously, I appreciate the vulnerability first and foremost, but what was the biggest adjustment that you had to make going from corporate America to obviously going out on your own and being your own boss? And with respect to that big leap, uh, how did you personally overcome it to start thriving in the way that you are now?
A lot of actually a lot of trial and error. A lot of people won't. Well, some a lot of people won't. A lot of people don't go into the fact that this isn't the first business I tried to set up. You know, it's actually my fourth business I tried to set up. And the way to get over it is just to get out there because I find that with most entrepreneurs who are just starting out, um, there's almost always either a sense of should I be doing this? Oh, is it gonna work? Well, it took me a lot longer to actually you know figure out that I should just do it rather than trying to figure out if it's gonna be perfect the first time out, right? So honestly, just the trick to overcoming is just get moving, at least in one small step. Just one small step. That's all it takes.
I always tell people it doesn't matter if that first step is a millimeter or a mile, it's still moving you in the direction that you want to go. So when we talk about procrastination, it's a killer. So before we go in any sort of direction, let's break this down first. Explain to the audience a little bit about what procrastination is, how it shows up in people's lives. I would say unknowingly, and now knowingly knowing what that is, what they can do to move past it.
Oh, for sure. I guess the easiest way to do that would be I'll be brief, not bore people to death. I usually deal with the five main archetypes of procrastinators. So you've got the perfectionist. This shows up as everything needs to be perfect. You're always waiting for the right time or the right conditions, or maybe it's just not it's not good enough, right? But not good enough for who? So that sums up the perfectionist pretty well. They want it to be perfect, so that's preventing them from moving. Then we have the worriers. The worriers are, I'm sure we can all relate to those. Those are the what if people. I landed in this too. I need to go out and mow my lawn. Well, oh well, what if it's going to rain? Oh, sun's out. Oh, okay, well, what if I get out there and there's no gas in the mower? Oh, nope, there's gas. Well, what if I go out and my neighbor doesn't like the noise? We just come out and make all these different excuses. The third type is my personal favorite, the dreamer, because I'm a dreamer. Most entrepreneurs are dreamers, and that is that they're really good at planning these things out and seeing this vision of it in their head. But then they either get lost in the details because they get overwhelmed because they don't know how to do it, or they just get bored because it's much more rewarding sometimes to think about doing it than it actually is to actually do the thing that gets it done. And after the dreamers, you have the crisis makers, which these are your people that nothing's important until it's like right at the crunch. So these are the people that you say you work well under pressure, and you feel like you can't really do something until literally it's like the day before it has to be done. And then the last one is the defier. I actually like the defier archetype the most because that is 100% related to oneself, and it's normally because we want that sense of autonomy. We don't like being told what to do. So whenever we hear I have to do something, immediately there's that resistance, right? So I like the defiers because it's just a really just a simple mindset shift as compared to the others.
With the types that you just explained, which type is the most difficult to help overcome procrastination and which is the easiest?
Oh, well, yeah. So the easiest, definitely. The easiest are the dreamers. So in order, I would say it's the dreamers first because they have the incentive and the motivation and the inspiration to actually go, and then it's the defiers because the defiers, you have them switch that paradigm and they're figuring out their reason, the why they should do something. The hardest one, honestly, the hardest one, and it's different for everybody, but in general, the hardest one is the perfection one because that's usually tied to deep seated, some sort of fear of rejection, fear of failure, feelings of, not being worthy or not being good enough. And that's why it has to be perfect. So those ones are, those, when we're dealing with perfectionists, those generally tend to be some of the hardest ones, followed by the warriors for sure after that. So if I had to make like in order of kind of like hardest to easiest, it would be perfectionists, warriors, defiers, crisis makers, and then dreamers. So dreamers being the easiest, and then those other two being the hardest.
Do you find dreamers is the largest conglomerate of procrastinators?
Oh, in my personal experience, it's actually pretty evenly split. It's split between dreamers and warriors because when you're a dreamer, you're worried about things not going right too. So I find it's a pretty big split between those two.
Do you think there's not enough being done? I mean, I know you're leaving your mark and your legacy, but as a whole in business, do you feel there could be more resources, more tools, more things out there to help people break these procrastination habits?
Oh, I mean, there can always be more. There can always be more. Things are constantly evolving. We get new information every day. Like even myself, when I talk to other coaches or I talk to other therapists or psychologists, psychiatrists, you know, it's changing every day. So definitely, I think that there could be a lot more out there. And one of the specific reasons that I think there could be more out there is because we tend to try and lump everything into a box. But I've gone into five different archetypes, right? And when you go and you look for this information, sometimes they don't even split it up by based on that. They give you very generalized sort of tips and tricks, which those will work. But you need to really know what kind of procrastinator you are, and sort of your why, your reason to why it's happening before you can go there. And we definitely need more of those kinds of tools or assessments or whatever, so that people can, know what they're dealing with at least.
So there's three things that you empower and help your clients with. One being time management, two being focus, and three being personal growth. And I think that's kind of like that recipe for success, right? Because if you're managing your time properly, you're more productive. If you're focused with what you're doing, you're getting those things done. And if you're personally growing, then you're expanding, which means you're willing to get uncomfortable, you're willing to do those things. So when we talk about the different types of procrastinators, between time management, focus, and personal growth, if you had to pick one of the three as the most challenging for the prototypical procrastinator, which one of those three is it and why?
Mm. That's a really good question. I like that question. Um, so time, and so I'm gonna discard the ones first actually, because that's a little bit easier. So we can discard time management because honestly, anybody can set up an app. Anybody can, there's so many tools that can plug things into calendars and figure it out.
Pomodoro timer, like
Yeah,
anything like that. Yeah.
exactly. So I really don't think it's that. I do think for sure, and I'm not even going to say it's going to be focus, because focus comes along with personal development. I'd say personal development is probably the kind of where it's the most difficult, just because personal development requires awareness, and awareness is at just coming from somebody who's been completely oblivious to something for 14 years, I can tell you that awareness isn't always um, easily accessible, I guess.
So with that in mind, for me, personal growth was, I don't want to say a challenge, but I was a worrier. Um, it was just one of those things where when I started to dive into the world of personal development and personal growth, what helped me most was turning the mirror around on myself. But more importantly, I stopped playing the blame game, meaning I stopped pointing the finger. I started taking ownership. And I remember being out to dinner with my wife. And this is when we were either dating or engaged. And I remember it was during the holidays. We were having dinner before we were going to go see the Nutcracker. And something came up during our dinner. And she was just letting me kind of get out whatever I was getting out. And she said, I just want to let you know, if we're going to continue on a path of personal growth together, she goes, you have to stop pulling out the oh, woe is me card. You got to stop playing the blame game card, no matter what it is, good, bad, or indifferent. She said to me, there is power in taking ownership of the things that you mess up with and you mess up on, taking full ownership. So I fully acknowledge that without obviously her as a sounding board, but also me kind of leaning into this personal growth aspect, because they don't teach you that in school. They're not teaching you about the science of getting rich and how to win friends and influence others. They're not teaching you personal development. And Chris, these are life skills that help you with the relationship with yourself, with your loved ones, with your friends, coworkers, employees. I mean, it's so foundationally sound how better one becomes when they work on themselves. So, in obviously you sharing that, what is it about personal development or personal growth that not just procrastinators struggle with, but I would say across the board, getting someone to really move that needle forward, it's really there's an area of struggle there. Why do you think people struggle so much with really digging into the personal development side of themselves and obviously what they want to achieve?
Right. Well, the personal development side again, and I love that. Don't play the blame game, and I always like the example of, if I'm pointing a finger at you, I've got three fingers pointed back at myself. So I like that one. I like that. It's difficult because it's uncomfortable. Just having gone through my own shadow work and gone through my own things. I mean, when I first started on my journey, sort of to self discovery, it wasn't all unicorns and rainbows. I mean, I had some pretty death metal moments in there. It is uncomfortable because you have to ask yourself a lot of uncomfortable things. You have to look at your behaviors, and you have to realize that once you get rid of the blame game, like once you get rid of, oh, I did this because he made me do it, or she made me do it, or they made me do it, or, you're making me do this. It because taking back your power is liberating, but it's also scary, right? Because for many of us, even though we don't like being told what to do, we like having that structure, and we like at the end of the day to just be comfortable in the fact that we don't have to worry about that because it's not on us.
I love that. And so when you started stepping into the world of coaching, consulting, helping, people with procrastination, obviously being a procrastination coach, what are some, I would say, side effect positive results that you saw from the work that you were doing with these people that you didn't necessarily expect? Obviously, you were teaching people how to overcome their procrastination, but there's always, I would say, positive side effects to things. One thing happens, it causes another domino to fall. What was that unforeseen domino that you started to see fall for the people that you were working with?
Well, I mean, honestly, when I started coaching people, some of the actually the biggest unintentional sort of side effect was that when they were able to overcome the procrastination in the one area, it actually got them thinking and seeing why, and it just opened up like this floodgate for it opens up the floodgates for you. Because a lot of times we don't know why we're doing this, right? So if we go through and we fit, well, okay, we're not fixing it because it's not broken. It's, programming that was, but when you go through that and then you all of a sudden realize, oh, I'm doing this because of this. I'm avoiding this because of this. And it's like, oh, well, this applies to every other part of my life, right? So I'll give you a real one of these real examples. So with folding the clothes. So there was this person that he related this story to me. So he was folding his clothes, and he wanted to really figure out what it was. So okay, so you look at the task and you actually go in and you see what part of it is bothering you. And so, picking up the clothes, not a problem. Opening the washer, not a problem. Putting in the soap, washing them, not a problem. Changing them over, not a problem. Pulling them out of the dryer, not a problem. Folding, ah, there's my there's my problem. So, once you figure that out and then you start pulling on those threads, and then you either find a way to delegate, or you find a way to negotiate, or you just find a way to get through it, and you develop that new habit. But now that you know that it's that specific part of the task that bothers you, now you're looking and you're saying, okay, well, why is that? In general, where else does it apply in my life? And so many times when people are working with me now, like afterwards, when we're working in a specific area, whether it's their business, whether it's painting a fence, whether it's doing whatever, in the end they're like, wow, so they ask me, so wait, so I do this, when it comes to folding clothes, you know is it possible I also do this when it comes to this activity, this activity, this activity, right? And there are patterns like that. So I think that one of the most surprising things coming out is when you work on it, just what else surfaces.
No, I love that. And I think when you start peeling back the layers of the onion, you really don't know exactly what you're going to find. So obviously, there are more people that are turned on to personal development, personal growth, making themselves better with time. I mean, because again, we're living in a very overstimulated world right now, let's be honest. So, yes, you're seeing more procrastination, but you're seeing more people combat procrastination. So, with that in mind, knowing how overstimulated we all are, where do you see the world of entrepreneurship and business going? And I would say, riding sidecar to that, how do you see procrastination or things that we can do to prevent procrastination? Where do you see that kind of working into where business is moving forward?
Well, the biggest part that's moving forward is procrastination actually looks like, um, you know loss of productivity looks like burnout, looks like overwhelm, right? It's not necessarily that they are that, but they do tend to lead to that. So, where I see entrepreneurship kind of going in the future, especially with AI, is I see that we're going to increasingly have these tools that we can use to, better our businesses. But at the same time, it's advancing at such a rapid rate that what we're seeing right now is we're seeing deer in the headlights or analysis paralysis right now. Because even my own daughter, she says to me, she's 12, and she says, "What am I supposed to study when I get older? Like, what jobs are there going to be?" So like, I can see us, at least for the next little bit, running into that uncertainty, and then running into, again, just procrastinating because we don't really know what we should be doing.
No, I have a 12-year-old as well. And I mean, it's a very influential age, right? They're very involved in what you do. And, myself and my wife, we have three businesses that he kind of sees us running and operating. His mom is a teacher, so he's seeing that side of the education system. So he's seeing kind of like that side of there are many ways, obviously, to earn and make a living. And to your point, who knows what it's going to shape up to be in the next, you know, 6 years when he goes off to college, and obviously the next 10 years when he graduates college. Like, we don't know over the next decade what life and business is going to look like. But I do know that procrastination is never going to fully go away. Obviously, there's going to be more tools and more ways of how to overcome it. And that leads me to my next question. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there that are in the coaching and consulting space. I believe every coach needs a coach. So if someone was to ask Chris what differentiates him from other coaches and consultants out there, not necessarily from your zone of genius and your niche, which is procrastination, but what do you feel others would say about you, and what makes you different from other coaches that are in the space that you're in?
Right. So for me personally, what would be different about me is that I say that, like I say up front, and I know that this is sometimes something that comes up. I generally tell them up front, this is going to take work. It's not where I'm going to sit there and tell you what to do or how to do it. We have to do it together. So that I think that is something that sets me apart from other coaches right now. I only work with 10 clients at a time. And the reason I only work with 10 clients at a time, or it's either 10 personal clients or a mix of 10 groups, or however it may span out. And the reason I do that is because I do daily accountability as well. So the first 2 to 3 weeks that you work with me every day for about 10 to 15 minutes, we go over exactly, because these are all new things you're going to be doing. You're going to be journaling or taking notes, or you're going to be being mindful of how your energy levels are in the morning when you wake up, when you do certain tasks, right? So I definitely think that's one of the things that sets me apart, at least right now, is because I'm not looking to scale a 100 million coaching business or have 10 million clients, because how could I service them, right? So definitely, I think is because I have that sort of that hand in hand sort of accountability program, and the fact that I'm not really looking to scale. I think that's what sets me apart right now.
I love that. And again, my wife and I've been God coaching, consulting in some way, shape, or form since 1999. So different iterations. We have scaled back, but scaling up at the same time, meaning we work 3 days a week. We do only work with a certain amount of clients like you, because we want to create that flexibility and that freedom. But again, there's something for everyone, and obviously I think the personal touch and your human experience is what really differentiate one person from another. And I do really like the fact that you do spend that really deep rooted upfront time with people when they are making these changes, because change is not easy for a lot of people. And I'm sure you've had the experience where you've worked with someone and it's been just easy breezy. Like, they get it, they're like off and running. And but I'm sure you've had those clients that were a little bit of a challenge for you. And again, everybody shows up in your life for a reason. And that's what my wife and I truly believe in that, you're supposed to be challenged with some of the clients that you get because there's hurdles that need to be overcome. And obviously those are the differentiating factors. Can you overcome this? But also, I'm sure there comes a point where there's too much resistance built up where the person is just not willing to do the work, and you can't help someone that is not willing to put the work in. I think that's the big thing. It's, learning to cut the cord, so to speak, and kind of move in a positive, different direction for the two of you. I mean, it's good to recognize that. So, Chris, as we start to wind down, the topic of procrastination, I can assure you, has resonated with more than just a few people that listen to this podcast. So if someone is really learning to kind of dig into their own procrastination issues with everything, the archetypes that you talked about, the different strategies and methodologies of what people can do to kind of move the needle forward, and they're looking to work more closely with you and find out about what you have out there as far as coaching, consulting, programs, what's the best way for people to find you online?
Actually, what I would recommend everybody to do is just go to www.procrastinationstation.ca. And right on the homepage, I've got a test. It's 8 questions. And if you're not quite sure what archetype you fall into, or kind of what you're even dealing with, you'll be able to take that quiz, and then right afterwards, it'll tell you a little. It'll be a small little blurb, and then you'll actually be able to schedule some time with me. Again, it's no cost, no obligation, and I'll actually explain that archetype to you. We'll go through it. You can tell me specifically, your example. I'll give you, the outline, kind of what it looks like to work with. And even if we don't wind up working together, at least you're going to have the information and maybe a little bit more, clarity on what's going on, and maybe how you can start to deal with it.
Love that. So everyone that's listening or watching, you'll have the link to that right in the description of the episode, so you're not going to have to go too far. So again, that's www.procrastinationstation.ca, not .com, .ca. And you'll be able to obviously get all that information from Chris. So Chris, final question before we sign off. What does success truly mean to you?
Success to me, honestly, and I've had this conversation with so many clients as well. Success to me is, are you covering, your bills and everything you need to survive? And are you, do you have enough left over to do what you actually want to do? And then the third metric that I use is what sort of impact are you making? How many people, can I, help today? I don't really measure it by extra zeros on someone's bank account though all the time, because anybody, I can tell you right now, anybody can give 10, 20 times your revenue in a business. Mine, I'll give you a quick story. I know we're on the clock. Quick story. I actually started working with an entrepreneur, and she wanted her daughter to join the family business. So the daughter actually came to me because she wasn't able to get her driver's license. I was able to coach her through getting the driver's license, and she was able to join the family business. Now, I did wind up, tripling their revenue while they were working with me to make that sort of transition, planning. So they were able to do that. But for me, I don't care about that. I care about the fact that her daughter was able to actually get her license and then join that family business.
Yeah, I always tell people the money shows up when the impact is felt. And I think, one directly correlates to the other. And I think you stated that perfectly. So, Chris, just wanted to thank you again for popping on to the episode today and sharing everything that you do, and obviously what people can do to move past procrastination and get into more production to really live the life they deserve. So thank you again so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Scott.
Absolutely. So again, all the information on Chris and how to get in touch with him will be in the show notes, the description of this episode, and the email broadcast that gets pushed out to all of you. So please do let us know what you loved most. Don't forget to leave a rating and review on the podcast. Continue to support us. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Love and gratitude, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you could, please support this podcast by hopping over to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or any place that you're listening to this. Leave us a rating and review. Let us know what you loved most and what you would like to hear more of. But also, if you would like to learn how to take your business to the next level, whether it's using LinkedIn or working directly with myself and Nancy in our intimate group coaching programs, you can head over to www.thetimetogrowcom, or scottaaron.net to learn more. Thank you again for your support, love, and gratitude, and I'll talk to you soon.